We're back, baby, with more Bridezillas. My father is one of 8 and has 4 sisters. My grandfather, who worked hard all of his life, has been retired and living on his pension for 20 years now. Paid for the weddings of each of his girls. Damn. My aunt flipped her when he said he couldn't pay for her 3rd marriage to a guy she'd known for 6 months if she wanted an island wedding. He was cool with paying for a small wedding in their hometown, but he simply couldn't afford to give her the all-inclusive dream wedding she wanted. By the way, she divorced from millionaires and has plenty of cash, but feels her 90-year-old father should have to pay for a 300-person wedding in the Bahamas so she can afford a beach house. That's lovely. She responded to that offer by calling him a stingy old a-hole and saying that she was glad my grandmother died young so she didn't have to see her husband become a greedy... Okay, this woman has gone too far. Protect this grandfather at all costs. So finally, with the support of the rest of the family, my grandfather told her to F off and pay for her own wedding. This all went down about 5 years ago, and the aunt hasn't contacted anyone but my other aunt since. Apparently, she divorced the 3rd husband and retired at the age of 45 to a condo in Florida. She's living off the settlements from the divorce. There seems to be a common denominator in these 3 divorces. My brother's first wife wouldn't allow any of our family that she hadn't met into the wedding. Now, we've got a good-sized family, so this would mean things like inviting one cousin that she'd met, but not their parents or siblings that lived out of town, etc. We offered to hold an engagement party so she could get to know some of our out-of-towners, but she declined, saying that she didn't want to feel obligated to invite these new family members that she'd only met once and didn't know very well. In the end, we decided to go with the immediate family only. We figured it would be less awkward and rude than to pick and choose between family. My brother ended up having 6 people at his wedding. Oh my God, along with around 65 from the bride's side. Oh my God, that's awful. Imagine 6 people. Basically your parents and your siblings. That's so uncomfortable. A bride once called having a meltdown because her friend got engaged as well and was planning to get married in the same year as she was. Apparently, it was her special year and not just a day. A year? It's not even the same month. She threw a huge fit that this girl was only getting married to steal her thunder. Her friend's date wasn't even the same month or season. Hers was in October and her friend's was in June. When you're on your deathbed in the hospital, are you really gonna look back and be like, do you remember when my friend had her wedding a few months after mine? I promise you, it's not relevant in the big scheme of things. It's not. My worst bride was an Ivy League educated shrink. She tried to play head games with absolutely everyone involved in the planning of the wedding. Frequently had fits. She and I butted heads because she wanted a carpet running straight from the bottom of the stairs to the doors of the chapel. I told her it wasn't possible, they didn't line up. She kept on asking me if I was sure even after I showed her exactly what I meant. She narrowed her eyes and told me she thought I had a problem with the truth. She was very controlling with the groom as well. I remembered their names and looked them up on Facebook a while back. They're divorced and he appears to be happily remarried. Now that is some tea. We have seen these stories end in divorce, but not a remarriage. Love to see it. They moved on happily ever after. Toodaloo. At a wedding I went to, the bride replaced a bridesmaid of hers at the last minute because she dyed her hair a slightly lighter brown the night before. Apparently it didn't match the dress, which was bright pink. What hair color wouldn't go with that? Because even if you did like a bright green or a bright blue hair, like that would still look pretty friggin' cool. I knew a woman who was a bridesmaid in a relative's wedding. She was married and had been trying to get pregnant for a while. Finally, she and her hubby got lucky and she conceived. Duh. The bridezilla got furious, oh boy, and kicked her out of the wedding because she would be pregnant in the pictures. 3 months later, sadly, the woman miscarried. The bride called her with a response along the lines of, good, well now you can be back in the wedding. Needless to say, she did not even block, delete, out of my life, never speak to me again. I work in an industry with a busy season such that you cannot get time off toward the end except in life or death situations. When my wife's sister let us know 3 months in advance that she was getting married just after the busy season, I told her that I was glad it was then because if it had been even 3 days earlier, I couldn't attend due to the time it would take to travel the 900 miles to be there. The next day, she called us and told us that they moved the wedding to 2 weeks earlier. Well, I apologetically explained to her that I couldn't be there because it would literally be the end of my career and livelihood. She didn't listen to a word I said and tried to guilt trip me into going, despite them knowing I wouldn't attend in this situation even before they changed the date of the wedding. I would get phone calls every other day by either my sister-in-law or mother-in-law yelling and screaming at me because I was going to ruin their wedding day by not being there. My wife went to the wedding. I ate pizza. It was friggin' delicious. My wife's sister's wedding, or the food on my table and the home I live in and my livelihood and career and all my hard work. Oh, how will I ever choose? I used to work for a tent company and we would set up for weddings. One in particular comes to mind. It was 95 degrees out, middle of July, and we were all suffering. That sounds brutal. This was a large wedding with a large tent, stage, dance floor, tables, chairs, plates, silverware, lights, etc. We arrived at our parents' house at 7 a.m. She was all nice and calm, said that she would buy us all lunch, 6 or 7 guys, at around noon to thank us for the hard work. She also said that she would bring us water since it was so hot out and we could tap into the keg when we were done. Great deal, right? Why do I feel like it's wrong? Wrong. Ah! About noon, we had gotten the tent up, the lighting done, the stage and dance floor partially set up. She came running out saying that we needed to move the tent 3 feet. Yes, we needed to move the 240 by 60 tent 3 feet. My initial response was, "Are you kidding me?" She wasn't. After talking it over with her, we decided to move the tent. We had to. The customer is always right when they say, "This is where I want the tent to go." We put it up and she changes her mind. We take it down, move the tent 3 feet and put it back up. It is now pushing 8 p.m. Still no water, lunch, or dinner. 10 p.m. rolls around and we are unloading tables. She comes storming out saying, "You are making too much noise, be quiet." One guy I worked with asked, "Can we please get some water now? We drank all of the water that we brought." She goes, the hose is around back. Take some, but not too much. Water is expensive. We never got a lunch, dinner, or beer. Surely that's illegal, you guys. I would have just walked away and taken a lunch break. When we went into the reception, we were expecting a buffet or something to be set up, but there was nothing. Later, we found out there was no food for 120 guests, but rather a cheese spread, fruit platter, and vegetables with dip. After an hour, I literally got more food than that at like Sunday school. But okay. After an hour, people were really hungry and people started to leave because they were expecting to be fed and didn't want to stay. When the bride found out, she ran across the room in her dress and blocked the doors, screaming about how everyone is ruining her wedding and screaming, "Bride's way." No. Bride's day, bride's way. It was such a scene that her father had to peel her off the door. Don't know where the husband was, probably cowering, and people who didn't know her that well all left, rightfully so. I heard through the grapevine that she was inconsolable the entire night, got trashed and threw up, hopefully on her dress, but not sure. Oh well, bride's day, bride's way. Oh my God, isn't that what they say? Happy wife, happy life. Making us all sound crazy. My auntie was 38 when she got married. She was the eldest of 2 sisters. Her sister was my mom. My mom got married when she was 22 to my dad, so she'd waited a long time for a guy to marry her. My sister was one of her bridesmaids. During a practice at the church, my aunt shouted at my sister for walking out of time. My sister was only 7 at the time and had to have a seriously stressed Bridezilla in her face because she didn't put her foot in the right place at the right time. It was terrifying. She burst into tears, and according to my mom, my aunt said, "Oh, and now she's crying. Can you remind me how old you are?" My mom was furious with her. My aunt is stubborn, so for a few weeks, my mom told my aunt to find a new bridesmaid. My aunt wouldn't budge until my grandmother eventually begged her for the sake of the wedding. Even now, my sister isn't fond of my aunt. My aunt is still extremely stressy. Stressy. I like that word. She has a young daughter of her own now. She treats like a queen. If anything happens to her, she turns into the Hulk. Yeah, isn't that funny? How you'll like be so opinionated on somebody else's kid, but if it happened to yours, you wouldn't be so happy about it. I had this client book me 2 weeks before the actual wedding. I regret taking it to this day. She had no transportation plan to take her home at the end of the night. I asked her repeatedly what her plan was, and she told me she just wouldn't drink and planned to drive to her honeymoon spot. Fast forward 2 weeks, a massive tornado just went through the area the day before her wedding, and power lines and trees were blocking every entrance to the highway to her wedding in the boonies of Maryland. I got up early to deal with the issues at the venue, like no electricity on a 100-degree day. Cancel the wedding. I get a call from her around 6 a.m. saying she realized she needs transportation now. Fine, I'll find it. Bless your soul. One last question. Where is this mystery honeymoon spot? Oh, hours away in West Virginia. I call every DC and Maryland-based limo company and beg them to find someone to drive into the Maryland countryside at 11 p.m. and then take them to West Virginia. Finally, someone relented, and I called the bride to tell her the price. Complete effing meltdown. Well, guess what? You request that at the last minute, you're going to pay whatever they want to charge you. Facts. The wedding itself was a complete chaos. As it was 100 degrees and blazing July sun, the original unshaded area was going to be terrible for the ceremony. I suggested we move it for her comfort and the comfort of her guests to the beautiful area with a centuries-old tree. She refused, but as guests arrived, they did nothing but complain. I decided to say, F it! And move the ceremony to make everyone happy. To top it all off, I got heat stroke and my poor assistant had to drive us home at midnight. I honestly would have rescheduled my wedding. It just doesn't even sound worth it for anyone involved. And I know for a fact you did not get paid enough to do all that crap. All right, guys, those are some more Bridezillas. I'm getting out of here. Stay classy out there, stay sassy, and I will see you tomorrow.